Okay, good evening. I'm going to call to order this regular meeting of the Perrysburg Board of Education this Monday, October 16th, 2023. We will start with roll call, please. Mr. Drewier.
Mrs. Eubank.
Here.
Dr. Reffert.
Here.
Mr. Pullman. Ms. Larimer. Here. Mr. Bennington.
Here. And Mr. Pullman is away on some pre-planned vacation. I say we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next item is our safety briefing. Perrysburg Schools welcomes you to the Commodore Building, and we thank you for attending tonight's Board of Education meeting. We care about the safety of our students, staff, families, and guests. Please note that there are exits on both the east and west sides of the cafeteria. In case of an emergency, an AED is located just outside the cafeteria doors. You are located at 140 East Indiana Avenue. Thank you for joining us tonight and supporting Perrysburg Schools. Next is item 2.1, accepting a motion to adopt the proposed agenda.
So moved.
Ms. Larimer?
Second.
Dr. Reffert? Roll call, please.
Ms. Larimer.
Yes.
Dr. Reffert.
Yes.
Mrs. Eubank.
Yes.
Mr. Bennington.
Yes, the proposed agenda is adopted. That takes us to item 3, Board of Education recognition. Might be a little flexible here in the order, Tom?
Yes, thank you. So we have some guests that are on their way and they haven't arrived, and so we'll be flexible. One thing, just for those that haven't tuned in to many of our board meetings, having delicious treats at the board members' tables isn't something that normally happens. So tonight, a little later in the agenda, we'll be receiving a presentation from our terrific food service staff. So they have set up a table with some samples of things that they serve students, and they put together a little something special for board members. So this isn't the norm, so I just want to be clear, but they know their audience, so we're looking forward to that. Their presentation's off to a great start already.
And Mr. Hostler, and the bun cakes are Kelly Wells's gift to the board.
Okay, all right. Thank you,
Mrs.
Kelly.
Wells.
Yep, very good.
You're
So,
trying to fatten us up for some reason.
yes, thank you. So we have two guests with us that we would like to ask to come up and say a few words. First is the city of Perrysburg is a very important partner to Perrysburg Schools. Folks don't realize that Perrysburg draws from students in Perrysburg Township and also Middleton Township, in addition to the entire city of Perrysburg proper. So all of our schools are located in the city of Perrysburg. So as we work on different kinds of things, whether it be student safety, issues with first responders, streets, sewer, all the things that have to happen, it's always with the city of Perrysburg. So the city administrator, who is hired by city council and the mayor, is an important person in our world. And there's been a new person that has just been hired in this role. I've had an opportunity to have a couple of conversations with him, and is very impressed with just his approach and how much he wants to work, not only with the schools, but with the entire community. So he's taking time out of his busy evening, and I know he's got to run after this event, but I wanted to introduce Joe Fawcett. If you'd like to come up, say just a few words, and thank you for being here, Joe. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. I really appreciate it. And to the members of the board, hello. As Tom said, I'm Joe Fawcett. I might be new to the community in this respect, but I did spend a lot of time growing up here on Locust Street. I went to Toth Elementary for a few years, so I'm not a stranger to Perrysburg. As Tom indicated, I am the new city administrator, and I think an important part of that position is relationship building and building a community and helping where we can with the different public entities, a big one of those being obviously the school. So I totally agree with Tom's assessment that a good working relationship between the city and the school board is critical, and that's something that I aim to continue, and I look forward to working with all of you in that respect. So thank you for having me, and it's nice meeting everybody. Thanks.
Good luck to you.
Yeah, congratulations on the new position. Thanks for coming to introduce yourself, and we look forward to working with the city as well.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next, we'd like to introduce our Ohio State Representative, Haraz Gambari. And Mr. Gambari is here to share a special commendation with the school district. Welcome, Representative.
Well, good evening, everyone. It's great to join you all, and to the members of the public, thank you for coming to the school board meeting as well. It's not that often that you get the opportunity to recognize folks that have done such tremendous things. When you look across the 600 plus school districts we have here in the great state of Ohio, Perrysburg certainly stands out as a shining example of the great things that not only our students have accomplished, most importantly, but also to our teachers and our staff and to those that support our local schools as well. So recently, we were briefed on the state Ohio school report cards grades here in the state of Ohio. And here in Wood County, it was Perrysburg and Otsego has a school in their district as well that earned 5 stars, but Perrysburg certainly rose to the top, not only as a district, but also many of the individual schools here in Perrysburg that received this tremendous honor. So tonight I just want to share with you the commendation on behalf of Perrysburg exempted village schools, but also I want to reiterate that I've shared with some of the district senior staff commendations to be presented to the other schools as well within the district. So Mr. Hostler, again, congratulations to the students, teachers, and staff of Perrysburg Schools on a job well done. And with that, I would like just to share on the record the contents of the commendation letter that I will be presenting to you all this evening. On behalf of the members of the Ohio House of Representatives of the 135th General Assembly of Ohio, we are pleased to extend special recognition to Perrysburg Exempted Village Schools on receiving 5 stars on its 2022-2023 Ohio School Report Card. To its credit, Perrysburg Schools has demonstrated exceptional initiative in conjunction with a number of ambitious educational standards, and its merits enthusiastic praise for attaining 5 stars on this year's Ohio School Report Card. This district has long encouraged its students to succeed in the classroom and in the community, and it has surpassed state performance expectations by building upon its tradition of excellence. All those associated with Perrysburg Schools have always committed to the most exacting standards. They have been recognized for their efforts to perform admirably in the components of achievement, progress, early literacy, gap closing, graduation, and college, career, workforce, and military readiness with their impressive 5-star ranking. Clearly, the dedicated administration, faculty, staff, and I would say most importantly, our students who comprise the district can feel privileged to be associated with such a proud heritage, and we look with optimism at the years to come. Thus, with great satisfaction, we congratulate Perrysburg Exempted Village Schools for its distinguished accomplishment and salute it as one of Ohio's finest scholastic institutions. The other thing I briefly want to mention is as we are approaching Veterans Day, part of the recognition deals with military readiness. And I know as a father of 2 young kids that are here in Perrysburg Schools that our schools places an emphasis on making sure that our young folks are supported when mom and dad or their loved one is called off to military service. I will be on some military duty overseas myself here in a couple of weeks. So I will be missing the event I always look forward to attending over at Fort Meigs, or now HPI, with our kids, the Veterans Appreciation Ceremony and Assembly. But I was very pleased when I let Mr. Best know of change in my plans for my military service, that the following day, our daughter came home and let me know that one of the teachers had reached out to her and just said, "Hey, Maddie, if there's anything we could do for you, the school could do for you, your classmates can do to be supportive, count us in." And so I think, again, that just goes to show how ready and willing Perrysburg's teachers are to support our students, no matter what they may be facing in the classroom or at home, to make sure that they can remain focused on their academics, that they can remain engaged in the classroom, and that ultimately, at the end of the day, we as a community come together each year to salute our graduates, wish them well, whether that is off to a four-year college, a two-year college, the trades, the military, public service, or whatever life's challenges that they look to kind of face head on, whatever they will be meeting as graduates of Perrysburg schools. I remain confident that those young women and men will be able to do so with the utmost preparedness to not only meet those challenges head on, but to exceed in everything that life brings our way. So I'm certainly glad to be having our two kiddos as members of the Perrysburg Public Schools, and look forward to continuing to serve you all as your state representative and to continue to cheer on our young folks and our students, our staff, and our faculty across the board. So with that, congratulations to you all, and thank you for what you do as the school board. And to the community, thank you as well. God bless.
So, Representative Gambari, thank you very much. Before you step away, first of all, thank you for your service in the future and in the past. I know the military is very important to you, and it's part of your DNA, so thank you for that. Later on at this board meeting, and I know you left one place to get here, and I know you have to get back, so thank you for taking the time to be here, and we greatly appreciate it. But we're going to be talking about you a little bit later. So I just want you to know about that ahead of time. So, but in my presentation and also in Mr. Dreyer, the treasurer, we're going to be talking about the impact of the Fair School Funding Plan on our budget as we look ahead in the 5-year forecast. And as a state representative, you were very instrumental in carrying the message and understanding and taking the time to understand it, talking to other legislators about how this would impact schools, not only here in Perrysburg, but across Ohio. And we were very grateful that that was incorporated in the biennium budget, fully funding years 3 and 4, and putting us on a very positive track. So later in this presentation, we're going to be talking about things that we're going to be able to do because of those funds, and that includes shifting and transitioning to full-day kindergarten next school year for all students, and that wasn't possible before because of the failure of the old formula. So just while you're here, know that we're going to be talking about you and your work to help bring this to all 609 school districts across the state, but especially here in Perrysburg, where it is, doing the things that we want a school funding system to do. And that is count the students that we have and fund us for those students. So thank you for all of your interest and all the hard work that went into that. So,
well, thank you for that, Mr. Hassler. I guess I'll just respond if I can, is that, as we're looking at legislation, not only legislation that impacts our public schools, but legislation that impacts Ohioans every day, no matter where they are on whatever journey they're on, but specifically speaking to schools, I think it's important to underscore that, legislation is complex. There are things that will work well in Perrysburg schools that may not work well in another school district in the state of Ohio. As you just said, Mr. Hassler, in fact, we do have over 600 public school districts here in the state, which again underscores the importance of the great academics and success that Perrysburg has had, because you are serving as an example for other schools to aspire to be along those same lines of academic success and preparing those students for the future. I did vote to support expansion of our school choice. That's something that we heard about. And as a representative, I represent folks that are from all walks of life and all backgrounds and upbringing. So I think we accomplished some great things for education, whether it is on the school choice front or whether it is on the public school front. On the school choice front, in the House, as a member of the Finance Committee, we made sure that we expanded school choice to 450% of the poverty level. So what that equates to is if you're a family of 4 making less than $135,000 a year, you're going to have your school choice funding there. But while that was being done, I wanted to make sure that we fulfilled our constitutional obligation to fund our public schools. So we passed legislation in the House, which with every legislation, whether it originates in the House or in the Senate, it goes to the other chamber. And that other chamber has an opportunity to dig a little deeper, dive a little deeper, find ways to strengthen that, raise some questions, vet that legislation, as both chambers should be doing. In the House, we voted not to concur with the changes of the Senate. The Senate did make one change that ultimately became part of the budget, which was in addition to the 450% of the federal poverty level that I just explained, this also included a 10% scholarship. So regardless of where they fell within 450%, more or less, everyone would be eligible for some portion of a scholarship. We were able to come to an agreement on that in the conference committee, so that became part of the budget that the governor signed. But more importantly, as we looked at what now former Speaker of the House Bob Cupp accomplished, and what former State Representative Representative Patterson accomplished in the Cupp-Patterson school funding model that you and many other folks across Ohio spent countless hours and days and weeks and months down at the State House crunching numbers and working to find ways that we could support our students regardless of what their zip code is, regardless of where they are living. We wanted to make sure that we continue to fund our public schools. So not only were we able to do the school choice expansion piece, we also brought in funding our public schools. And in fact, I helped secure, it was an additional, I believe it was $11 million to come into Wood County Public Schools in this budget. So I would just say at the end of the day, I think this is a win-win for everyone. We are placing the education of our students as a priority in our budget. And more importantly, we did this by passing a balanced budget. And this is a 2-year budget, so we're going to have to go back and we're going to have to continue to advocate for these things in budgets going forward. But I think this sends a clear message to our students, to our staff, to our faculty, to our families, that we want our families to make sure that they're choosing the best path for their students. And like I said earlier, I'm very proud and honored that both of our kiddos are here in Perrysburg Public Schools, both excelling very well and are supported by great teachers and staff, both at Fort Meigs and HPI. So to offer that up for context for this conversation you guys are allegedly having later on, there's a little more context to it.
Thank you
all
very much for the kind words. And again, I echo what Mr. Hauser says for your service, both in the military and for our district.
Thank you.
Photo.
I said the same thing, and it would have wore a tie if I would have known. Okay.
City administrator is going to start with a selfie, then we'll take it.
She has to change the camera. And good luck to you. I'll be keeping you in my prayers. Yeah, of course.
Well, thank you. Appreciate your help, Haras, a lot.
All right. So I'll introduce Mr. Jeff Abke and for another recognition. So thank you.
Great. Well, this maybe not as entertaining as school finance down in Columbus, but we've got some other great things to celebrate. And we've got Laren Manos here, who is the owner of New North Window and Doors. That's right. I forgot. You guys added the door part recently. So come on up, Laren. So last Friday, the high school, the senior class participated in Jackets Giving Back. There were 400 and some odd students out in, I forget how many dozens of different groups throughout Northwest Ohio giving back and learning about service. And the important part here, while we're here today, is that Laren and his company at New North Window is a continuing sponsor of this day. If you remember, we were here about this time last year, recognizing them as a sponsor then, and they've continued on this year. So we wanted to say thank you again. And they've got we got some updated shirts. They're in yellow this time, so versus the black last year. So we've got that for you and the whole crew. And it's funny. So I'll see people wearing these shirts, whether it's at the grocery or on the soccer fields or at the gym, and I'll snap a quick picture and text it to Laren and Pat and be like, hey, you guys are, it's giving back in even more ways than just that day. So it really is a great program. I know it's the 7th or 8th year that it's been happening, and a day that just really means a lot for us. So thank you all for being part of it. And like I said, well, love to have you back for year three too, but here we go. Well, great, and we'll get a picture, and I don't know who.
Sue, if you would, is our foundation rep?
Oh, that's right. Dirt.
So we had over 400 high school seniors and volunteers in probably 15 different locations serving on Friday. And many of them were wearing the shirts, but more importantly, they were doing important community service. So we're just so very grateful for their help in making this day possible. So.
Again, thank you for your support of the program. Okay. Next on the agenda is public participation. This is our first opportunity for public participation. This is going to include agenda items only. There will be a chance for a second public participation to cover other topics as needed. So we do have a couple of speakers that are non-agenda related topics, so you'll hopefully stick around for that conversation later on, for those comments later. So, okay, that takes us to the superintendent's report. Mr. Hostler?
Yep, thank you. So we're very fortunate to have this month featuring our Who Are You and What Do You Do, the Child Nutrition Department. And we'll invite Denise up to introduce what they do and how they do it so well. So.
This is the first time I've met Katie.
So thank you very much for having myself and Katie come tonight and talk a little bit about child nutrition. Anybody that sat in a meeting with me knows, like, we can talk about this tonight for 5 or 10 minutes, but I could talk about child nutrition for hours. So some people might not think it's that exciting, but it's very near and dear to my heart and all of the people that do work in the child nutrition department. So I am Denise Silsky. I am the Child Nutrition Director. I started here in Perrysburg last September. I replaced Lila Sozda, who had been the Child Nutrition Director and been with Perrysburg for 30 years. So it was a very exciting opportunity for me. Lila had ran a very wonderful program. I had come from Huron City Schools. I was there for 3 years as their operations director. And prior to that, Vermillion Schools for 18 years, 15 of that in operations and 13 overseeing child nutrition. Out of all the different departments I've overseen, I absolutely love child nutrition. It was something that was always very important to me growing up. A lot of times people think that students that really need free and reduced lunch, or they just need that lunch piece, are students that are struggling financially, but there's a lot of different factors that fall under that. So like myself, when I was growing up, my dad worked for Ford, so he was working quite a bit. My mother was experiencing health problems. So having school lunch was something that was very important to me. It was something that I looked forward to every day. And the people that worked in the food service department is always very warm and giving and caring to the students that they have every day. So that was always something that I did look forward to, and being able to do this as my career has been very rewarding to me. And it's something that, like I said, I have a true passion for. So Randy likes to call us Batman and Robin, so Batman's going to turn it over to Robin.
Mine is not as long and detailed, but I came from Toth as a kitchen assistant for, I think, 6 years, somewhere around there, and was ready for a change. And so this is where I landed. And I'm glad to be here. It's been fun.
Katie has done a tremendous job working with me. You just never know what's going to happen on a daily basis. So, we've had a lot of fun and enjoyed it. Perrysburg Schools is very fortunate with their child nutrition program. We have absolutely outstanding staff. The managers in the building, the assistants, all of the staff are very dedicated to what they do. They really care for the students and the staff that they work with. So it's a true pleasure to work with them because they are some of the most amazing people that I've ever worked with in a child nutrition program. So that kind of oversees what we do on a daily basis. We create fun, nutritious, enjoyable lunch experience for students. Every day we try to give them the most tasty, fun, nutritious food that we can possibly give them, but then that also has to include all of the federal, state, ODE guidelines for all of our menu items. So what we do have on the table over there is a little bit of things that we have in our buildings right now. We have a Nashville hot chicken wrap over there. We have some scones that Katie and I baked this afternoon. So everything's whole grain. You guys sample what you'd like to try. Those are all commodity items. So what that means is part of our federal program is we get entitlement dollars, which they go toward commodity programs. And in that entitlement funding, I wouldn't say it's free money because nothing is free money, but those dollars come over and we can purchase commodity items for just the cost of the shipping and handling processing fees. So you might be able to get a case of corn for $2.99 and everybody thinks, ooh, commodity. Well, back in the olden days when it was brown box and you might order great big turkey roasts for, Thanksgiving. We're able to use those commodity dollars now in like a co-op program, and we can get some really great products for really good prices, and we're able to make the most of the funding that we do have. Part of what I oversee, and Katie helps me with, is budgeting our labor hours, our food costs, equipment, revenue. There's a lot that goes into the child nutrition program for the funding and the budgeting. So it does take a lot of time, but we try to be as efficient as possible and try to use the most of the funds that we do receive. We also, we have to maintain and track all continuing education for our staff members. So I know that there's, continuing education for all different programs. The food and nutrition program is one that you really wouldn't realize that there's as much. On any given year, I get about 40 hours of continuing education just through the nutrition program. So we have to have CEUs for the USDA, the ODE, school nutrition, and then also the local health department. So that's a little bit of what we do. Some of the challenges that we face: outstanding lunch charges. That would probably be one of the larger outstanding challenges that we do have. Perrysburg is very fortunate, though, compared to a lot of districts, in the fact that even though everyone's struggling financially, we've been able to keep our outstanding lunch balance a lot lower compared to a lot of districts, especially around us. We have done a lot of different online text, call, email notifications to parents so that they're able to know if a student falls into the negative. And also, we've been really fortunate in working with Chris Harper and the social workers here at the district. They've been amazing. If there is a family that they know that might be struggling, we're able to talk to them and work out anything that they have that we might be able to help them with or create payment plans.
Staffing, I guess, is probably the same as everywhere else. The list of a need of subs is long, and the list of actual subs is short. So that has been a challenge. But one thing that Denise did this year is hire 2 floater positions. So we have one at the elementary and one between HPI and junior high. So that person is housed out of a certain school, and then we'll cover absences within those buildings, and that has helped tremendously. Yeah.
Just like staffing, there's also supply chain issues. Everyone experiences it when they go to Walmart, any of the, Target, you go to the grocery store. We're no different. We've had to get very creative. One week it might be chips, the next week it might be chicken, or right now we're struggling to get pizza. So you just never know. We just try to do the best that we can. So there is always that little line on the menu that says, menu items may change. So, we're working the best that we can. Sometimes it does get frustrating for, the kitchen managers because they're planning on having this chicken nugget, but it didn't work out. So we have to move on to something else. So.
Another interesting one is to increase the participation between the free and reduced kids. Most of the meals that are purchased are regular pay students. It's just a small percent of free and reduced kids that purchase meals. And so how can we change that around for the kids that might really need that? So.
Aging equipment, that happens with a lot of districts. The real challenge with it is not so much, here we keep up with the equipment, it's very well maintained, but as things start to age out, just like supply chain issues, we start to struggle with trying to find replacement equipment. So equipment's very expensive. You want to try to get the best equipment possible, but it takes weeks, sometimes months, to get replacement equipment. So Katie and I are constantly trying to, look at different ways to keep the equipment going as long as we possibly can. If we do need to replace something, we do it as quickly as we possibly can and have to get creative on some changes like that. Accomplishments. So one of the things that we did this year was do our free and reduced lunch application online. That has been a huge help to people that want to, complete an application but not have to go through the old process of having to go to the school and get an application or have their child pick up an application, fill it out, by hand, and then go through all those steps to return it. So now they can go online and answer 7 questions, and then they'll know immediately if they were approved or not. So it helps them have that anonymity that they normally wouldn't have the old way that we had done it. So we've had a lot of success with that this year.
Super excited for the online menu option that Denise put a lot of work into this summer. Through myschoolmenus.com, the menus are all uploaded on the school website. You can do really cool things. You can filter out allergens. You can choose a different language. You can get carb counts for the students that are diabetic, so useful for the school nurses. A lot of really cool features just at your fingertips. It's pretty neat. We've added new and exciting menu options at all grade levels. We did a Chick-fil-A sandwich, a play on the Chick-fil-A, chicken and waffles, breakfast sandwiches, Nashville hot, sriracha chicken chunks, things like that, and some new Asian-inspired chicken dishes as well. So things are going over pretty good.
So one of the things that we did in the spring was there was a fourth line at the high school that was similar to like a subway line that they had closed due to, after COVID. I thought, you know what, let's try something different. So Katie and I went and spent the whole month of April over there trying to see what the students were interested in. So we did a lot of different sandwich options, tried a lot of different things. So in, talking back and forth, we decided to take all those sandwich options that we had, put them on the sandwich line where it was typically like chicken patty and hamburger, and then we moved the Beehive into that fourth line. So it's all a la carte there. Students are able to access the a la carte easier than they did when it was the actual Beehive itself. So there's a lot more different options, and also we have grab and go bento boxes, and we have some over there on the table too that you can see. So it's a quick grab and go lunch. That being said, coming soon, the Beehive, we are turning into a coffee shop. It's going to be called Jacket Java. So the exciting part about that is to increase breakfast participation. We're hoping that having the coffee shop, it meets all federal and state guidelines. All of the beverages except tea can be part of a reimbursable breakfast because of the milk content. A lot of the items are non-caffeinated, and we're going to have, we have the scones back here for you guys to sample. The students can, get a drink, whether it's a frozen latte or hot chocolate, put that with one of the breakfast breads or one of the breakfast items and a fruit, and they'll be good to go. And that would be a reimbursable breakfast. So we're really excited about that. Hoping to start doing some sampling out this week, and starting next week, we'll have it open. So we are working with Lindsay Kerson's class to have the students come down and work with them to learn some life skills, some peer mentors coming to help them. So very excited about that program. I think that that'll be some great interaction with the students and the cafeteria staff as well. That's me.
Is the Beehive only breakfast? I mean, the coffee is only going to be?
No, so that's going to be open during lunch as well.
Nice, thank you.
So they'll have that opportunity that they can, get different beverages all day. So that being said, with increased participation, that works hand in hand with trying to increase the breakfast numbers. Our breakfast numbers have been a little lower at the high school level especially, but I think that that'll create some excitement with that. So the child nutrition department runs financially independent of the school district. So we're almost like a restaurant within the district. Everything is separate. So any money that's allocated to Perrysburg from federal, state, or local government is completely separate, used for school meals. So we have three main sources of revenue. Those are federal reimbursements, student pay, and matching funds through the state of Ohio. A lot of people think that it comes out of the general fund, but it's all independently done through our programs.
So the National School Lunch Program came about from a response that American men had been rejected for World War II military service because of diet-related health problems. And so Harry S. Truman had signed the National School Lunch Act, June 4th, 1946. The federally assisted meal program was established as a measure of national security to safeguard the health and well-being of the nation's children and to encourage the domestic consumption of nutritious agricultural commodities. Okay.
So the National School Lunch Program serves nearly 30 million children every day. And John F. Kennedy, so last week we celebrated National School Lunch Week, and he created that in 1962. So everyone would understand the importance of National School Lunch. So Perrysburg schools, and this I think is kind of interesting and exciting. So last year we served over 361,000 lunches in our cafeteria and 36,000 breakfasts. But so to kind of put that into perspective, I figured out how many pounds that actually is of food, right? So that was 271,000 pounds of food for school lunch and 36,000 pounds for breakfast. So, you know, kind of nerdy, but very exciting. You know, that's a lot of food. So kudos to everyone that works so hard to get that ready for the students every day. So thank you for listening to us today, and enjoy some treats.
Thank you.
Mr. Bennington, if I can add a couple things. The food service program, as Denise pointed out, it's a federal program. Even though there's any local funding is coming through lunches and breakfasts fees, but it's treated as a federal program and it's audited as a federal program, even no matter what the split is. So that's important. That's the second thing to recognize is not all school districts' cafeterias run in the black. In many, many districts, the general fund is having to provide money to the food service fund to keep it operational. So the work they do is really important, and it's not in the general fund. But the fact that they're not in the general fund is a good thing in terms of. And the final thing I'll say is, it's all about the number of meals served, right? Because that determines our reimbursement is how many meals that we're able to serve. And I said, anything we do to get that up and participation up is huge, and it comes back to us. And our tax dollars set into Washington come back to the local district. So, and they obviously do a fabulous job, and it's nice not to have to worry about food service.
Yeah, no, it's good comments, and Sue and I sit on operations, and we get to hear monthly, how that group attacks the finances from both sides. To your point, finding new and innovative ways to get kids through the lines to generate revenue, as well as looking for areas to cut costs in. And I guess a third leg of that stool is finding the grant money too. I know they're very aggressive about going after grants to help fund different programs as well. So thank you for the presentation. Thank you for all you do for our schools. Mr. Hausler, next is the superintendent's report.
All right, thank you. Well, thanks. And so we'll move very quickly through this. So wanted to lead off with the report card, state report card. So we were very fortunate to have Representative Gambari here handing out accommodations for the work that our students and staff have done and the results on the state report card. As we heard from Mr. Swartzmiller at the work session, who did really a deep dive, it calls on a number of people to get the kind of results that we're very fortunate to have here in Perrysburg. The state report card is just one indicator. It doesn't capture all the things that happen every day and all the benefits of having a Perrysburg education has for the students who are attending here. It's just one snapshot. So it's important to keep it in the right context. It is important. We're glad we perform where we are performing. We also know that there are things that we need to do to improve upon that, and we're working hard to accomplish those things. But we also understand there is so much more. And performing in fine arts, at HPI, 72% of our students elect to be in one of the performing arts, so choir, band, or orchestra. That doesn't show up here. We just talked about Jackets Giving Back, and we'll mention it again, and the kind of outreach that students do in the community, that sense of service, that doesn't show up on the state report card. So it's important to kind of keep it in check with where we are and also those other important components to an education. But we were one of a few districts in the area that received 5 out of 5 stars in all the categories. Performance index score is 102.7, and that puts us in the top 6% in the state. The overall rating distribution for all of the school districts in the state, you can see that there were 75 out of over 600 school districts that received 5 stars. And then you can see the 4.5 stars and the breakdown there. So 4 stars was the highest level in the state. And then, of course, 1.5 stars was the least frequent. An interesting thing that Mr. Swartzmiller spent some time with, out of the 75 school districts, when you rank them in terms of the size, you can see here that, how do larger school districts fare in that 75? And you can see that Perrysburg was 28th. And in the rankings here, so the enrollment, Olentangy was the largest school district that received 5 stars. Their overall ranking was 30, just behind Perrysburg. You can see Mason City down near Cincinnati. That's the second largest school district that was in the 75. And just kind of falling down, you can see that that being a larger school district, you run into more barriers to overcome to get to that 5. And so it's important to see how schools fare. To put it in perspective, the 75 of the 75 districts that were 5 stars, 4 of them are smaller. So 4 of the 75 are larger or are not as large than Woodland Elementary. So the entire K-12 school district is smaller than Woodland Elementary. So to give you kind of a perspective, 14 of the 75 are smaller than HPI or the junior high school, so less than 900 students. And 35 of the 75 are smaller than Perrysburg High School. That's the entire district. So it was pretty interesting, and I really appreciate Mr. Swartzmiller doing that kind of deep dive into the data to break down, like, who are these schools. And the reason we do that is we want to see, what they're doing and how they're achieving, so that we can begin to reflect on those best practices as well. So being a smaller school, they work hard, nothing to take away from their accomplishments, but certainly the state report card is set up in a way where it is very much leaning towards smaller districts. Our schools breakdown is posted here, so you can see the overall achievement, and then the achievement level, progress, early literature, gap closing, and graduation. Fort Meigs Elementary was just one of 4 of the elementaries in the state, and there were thousands of those that were received 5 stars on their building report card. That especially with students in that grade K through 4 category of elementaries. Perrysburg High School was one of just 26 that earned that are 912 that had 5 stars, and that is pretty special. So the overall scores, you can see 94% of the possible 108.8 that was achieved. And you can, as we move through this, looking more locally, Wood and Lucas counties, you can see a breakdown. The performance index percent, you can see that Ottawa Hills with 97.5, Perrysburg 94.4. And that's a breakdown of how we performed. And certainly Ottawa Hills falls into one of those categories, which is a school district could fit in the junior high. So just to give you kind of that breakdown. We begin to look at the data and pull through in terms of how and where we are doing very well, But also we want to take that look in the mirror to determine where are those areas where we're not performing where we need to be, where our expectations are. So there's a lot of conversations that are happening at the building level in, what do we do to continue to see that kind of growth? But also, where are we not hitting the target, and what are the reasons behind that? So that's one of the things that I love about our staff is it isn't just, let's just look at the clippings and we're doing well, let's move on, but really taking a look in the mirror, because I think it's important that all of our students have that 5-star experience, and that's something that we're always striving towards. The full presentation from the October 4th work session, we pulled out just a handful of the bigger items from that, but there was a wealth of information and breakdown and analysis. If you'd like to talk to Mr. Schwartzmiller, he's more than happy to provide that deep dive, as you get into that. So with that, the expenditure piece, it's interesting. It's not part of the CUP report breaking down exactly how many dollars each school district in Ohio spends, but you can see that we're sitting this past year $1,700 below the state average. So our students are performing in certainly in the top 6% in the state, and we're doing it at a rate that is significantly below the state average. So looking at those largest, just to give you perspective, when you look at the largest school districts in that list that Mr. Schwartzmiller pulled out, we just threw in the cost per pupil just so you could look at the comparisons. And, Perrysburg, where it is with $12,936 per pupil, you can see where we line up is third lowest out of the 10. And you have as high as over $17,000, almost $19,000 with Upper Arlington, what they're spending per pupil, and a breakdown of some of those other districts. So when we talk about a lower cost, higher performance, it is certainly brought out by the data. What does the data say? And you don't hit those kind of numbers if there wasn't those kind of controls. And the presentation that just happened before us, where they talked about throughout their presentation about costs and making sure that we're providing a great product, a great service, but we're keeping track of our costs. And that's something I think that is indicative of the focus on that. This is rivalry week, so Anthony Wayne and Perrysburg as Maumee changed to a new league, and it's exciting to see Maumee student athletes performing, and they're actually competing for league championships, which is something that hasn't happened for many years. Anthony Wayne has kind of officially moved into that rivalry spot. So knowing that, we have continued to do outreach, because rivalries are fun, they're intense, but at the end of the day, it's just a small part of what we do, being part of a greater school community in Northwest Ohio. So we do hope we win on Friday and beat them badly, but we also appreciate them and wish them well on the other days. Service is one of those things that we continue to talk about, and we want it to become part of that fabric of what we do. And the Key Club is a student-led organization affiliated with the Kiwanis Club here locally, a great group of folks. And they've done some things with cookie drop for police and fire. They're doing some fundraising for the Ronald McDonald House, which is just a great and a great thing. The wolf stock dog toys for the Humane Society was a huge success, and then Out of Darkness Suicide Prevention Walk was something that was just recently done. So, just a highlight on one of many service clubs, and we'll pull other ones out to show what's been taking place. But that day that we had on Friday to go out in the community to serve isn't just a one-off, but it is something that our students were always trying to engage the community in a broader sense. Some important dates and times here for the Peter and the Star Catcher, which is the play that will be shown or performed, I should say, November 3rd, 4th, and 5th at Perrysburg High School. And there's information on our website that you can certainly order tickets and participate. So our kids do just a tremendous job. For those that have witnessed the Crystal Concert, this is a year where the Crystal Concert will take place. It is always a huge favorite that really puts folks in the mood for their season, for the holiday season and Christmas season. And tickets, it is a sellout, so keep an eye on when those become available. But it's a 70-minute Christmas concert. It moves very quickly. It is just one of the highlights, I think, of what we do with performing arts. So very excited about that. So Mrs. Price is coming up to talk a little bit about all-day kindergarten. We mentioned it earlier when Representative Gambari was up, and I'll turn it over to Mrs. Price.
So this is very exciting that we are looking to be able to transition to 80K tuition free for all students. Because of the fair funding formula, this financially is an option for our district now at this point. And I know Randy's done several presentations on that, but we've been working hard behind the scenes with our elementary principals as well as operations to really figure out those logistics of making that switch. And so we've analyzed current enrollment trends and looked at the classroom availability. It will be tight, particularly at Woodland and Fort Meigs. There could be some challenges there, but district-wide, we do have the space. And it would be, right now, we're looking at 3 new staff members in order to make this happen. Again, it's hard to know until kindergarten registration happens in the spring exactly how many sections at each building will be needed. So the space issue could even out depending on the number of students entering kindergarten next year. But we are tight for space, but it's so important, and educationally speaking, it really would be a great thing to be able to offer to families and really, make sure that we can truly start out all students on the right foot, regardless of the kind of financial strain of paying tuition for full day kindergarten. So if there's questions about that, I'm happy to answer them. But the plan is that the fair funding formula makes sense, and educationally speaking, it makes sense, and it's a great thing to be able to do for our families.
This is a great birthday present to Gretchen Downs.
Yes, this has been a discussion long in the making, for sure. And like I said, the fair funding formula really makes this an option at this point, which is fantastic.
Is that something we vote on later on, or just it's a done deal, or how does that work? What's the process?
So there generally has not been a vote. You approve so we already have all-day kindergarten, so it's not a new. What's happening is that the cost of the program is going away. So, so procedurally, I'm not sure if the board would want to weigh in on that officially to do a vote. But as we approach that, we certainly can discuss it. So, yeah.
One of the things in Ohio is that if a parent requests half-day, you still do have to offer that. And so we would see how many students would still be requesting that half-day. We already have around 80% of families participating in kindergarten. A lot of districts that have made this switch, they may see a small handful that first year, but then typically after that, really everyone takes advantage of that full day kindergarten. And so certainly we wouldn't be looking at, we're not anticipating a half day in each specific building. We would have to, again, see if that's a request specifically from parents, but we're working on plans to address that as well. So I don't know in terms of voting, still both have to be offered. We would just be looking at being able to get to the point where we can waive that tuition because it financially makes sense to even out in the formula in the next 3 to 4 years to do that.
Yeah. No, I was just wondering if it had to do with the budget that we would vote on it. I mean, that's part of what we
obviously,
do.
when you approve the appropriations, you're tacitly approving the budget for it. So it'll be in the next year's appropriations, essentially eliminating that revenue and adding that staff at that time, if necessary.
So you do vote on it. Okay.
And plus, I mean, it's not why we're doing it, but the talk at the State House is eventually it's going to happen anyway. But it's nice to be able to do it on our own terms.
Yeah, so there's some bills that are floating around about requiring this of school districts. There was a time, probably about 12 years ago, where a bill was introduced and passed where they were requiring it, but it was amended and changed for fast-growing districts We had concerns about that because under the old formula, if you recall, the state counted the number of students that were in a district, and there was a dollar amount that you received for students. However, if you were a growing district that next year, they capped how much revenue you would receive from the state. So the school district, if we were to flip the switch, we would face losing the tuition for the full day, and then those students, as new students for that next year, wouldn't be counted. So we would be educating those students without any state aid to match. And that really was a disincentive. And it would have been 3/4 of a mil when we looked at that we would have to allocate each year for all-day kindergarten. So the boards of education at the time, it was a priority, but it was something that was very challenging to overcome. Today, with this next, and I know Randy will talk more about it and with his report, but as they are fully phasing in the Fair School Funding Plan with years 3 and 4, the money that is being increased to fully phase it, we're now seeing the benefit of those students and counting them not as a half-time student, but as a full-time student, where financially now it covers, that cost, which we've never had before. So that's been a significant change that we haven't been able to do. So that is a positive thing with that. So.
And Randy, just to clarify, you can only count a student as a full-time student if you offer tuition-free kindergarten.
That's correct.
So that's just to clarify, that's why it makes sense at this point to do that with this Fair School Funding formula, so we can offer tuition-free and be able to count each student as a full-time student.
Yeah, and that has all sorts of ripple effects, right? Because it ends up lowering our wealth calculation, make us eligible for state aid, and that state aid is across every student. So even if it's $100, it's across, over 5,000 students rather than 200. So,
thanks. So we had a number of students that were supporting members of the 1983 Naval Academy that are riding across the nation, and we had 3 staff members as well that came out and supported these folks as they said thank you to our veterans and raising funds for veterans awareness. So that's something that's really special. Also, save a date, the junior high musical is taking place November 16th, 18th, and 19th. And also included in the presentation are also, some other performances with the junior high and high school. So I know individuals are always looking for those opportunities to drop in and see those performances. But as I mentioned, there's 3 whole slides of different performances. Why? Because again, as I mentioned earlier, over 72% of our kids at Hull Prairie, just as an example, are choosing to participate in these activities. We are very proud of our vocal music boosters and the work that they do to support our students. And this is a great event if you've never participated. And you can go online for the Dueling Pianos fundraiser. It's something that people look forward to every time they offer it, and I would recommend taking a look to do that. As mentioned,
Great logo.
Yeah, for sure.
That is a great logo.
So Jackets Giving Back, we just said thank you to New North Windows and Doors, and appreciate Mr. Abke, connecting with them to help pay for the T-shirts and some of the costs involved. You can see some of the different types of activities that folks were engaged in that day. So these are just a few of the snapshots of some of the outdoor activities. And, again, this is something that we've gotten questions on, so I wanted to circle back with the bond issue on November. A few things that folks have brought up, but we're looking at how does growth happen in Perrysburg. And again, the 312 kindergartners in 2011 started out together. Today, that is our senior class, and since that time, they've added 88 students in their 13 years together. The junior class started at 321, and they've added 144 students since they've been together. And you can take a look in that far right column as to how many students have been added since kindergarten. Last year's kindergarten class was one of the largest that Perrysburg had, with 394. They've added 27 students in 1 year, just over the summer. So imagine what that 394, which is now 421, will be by the time they hit 12th grade. So we know that growth is happening in every level, in every year, in every building. So that's really important to our conversations about the future. The Facilities Planning Committee, they have presented to the board on numerous occasions, and we're just very proud of the work that they've done. And I think that the work that they've done was, for me, exhausting. It was exhausting because this group came in with all different kinds of ideas. And when we sat down with them and began to do the work, and we worked for over 14 months together, they came in with ideas like, let's talk about 2 high schools. And then we talked about 2 high schools. And then they said, okay, well, what about this other idea of let's convert Hull Prairie to an elementary school? And so we dug into that. And it was like, well, why don't we have 2 junior highs? And we dug into that. Every single time that an idea came up from this group, it was explored and presented and debated and discussed. And as we began to really get through many of those conversations and topics, you could see the group getting closer and closer to reaching that consensus. And it circled around being in 2040. And 2040 is where we needed to be in their minds to put us on the right track for the future. And we understand that that was very important to them. As they went around to the different elementary schools, we had field trips that we put the group of 51 through, where they actually had to board yellow buses over a couple of evenings and physically visit every one of our buildings. And some of the things that they found when they were out there visiting was, number one, they were impressed with the conditions of our buildings. Our buildings are well maintained. And the kids and the staff and the families that are inside our buildings every day, they see that and experience that. Some of them hadn't been in the building since the 80s, and they walked in the secure vestibule and they buzzed in and all the kinds of things that you do now to enter a school building. And they said, when my kids were here, the front door was open. You walked in, you took a left, you took a right, another left, and then you were in the middle of the building, and there was the principal's office. And we said, well, we live in a time where we need to make these kinds of changes. And we've done that. And then we went out the back of some of those buildings where the portables were. And that's where the crowd, the committee, well, they turned on me. They became angry towards me. And they said, these portables are just out here. Anyone can come from any direction. And yes. And the students who are walking in and out of the portables, if they have to go to the bathroom, they're moving in between the buildings. And yes. Well, why don't you put like a fence around them to protect the building? Well, the fire department gets a little concerned when you begin to pen students in around a building. You can't do that. And that was one of the other key moments where they began to say, we didn't move here to Perrysburg to have this be the experience. And we had to explain to them when we were at the high school, every 50 minutes, kids are coming in and out. Kids have to use the bathroom in class. They have to figure out a way to leave the portable to get into the building. Well, why did we put the portable here? Well, because we have to put it within so many feet of a restroom, because the portable doesn't have a restroom. So they heard all these kinds of things and said, we need to move away. The solution is I think, one, it maximizes our ability to get the number of classrooms that we need. As Mr. Dreyer has explained, the amount that we are permitted to borrow is allowing us to do this. So, if the district wanted to do more, we're really limited as to what we can do. Going for a bond issue is a lot like a mortgage, and I'll come back to that explanation or that description. And we're at the maximum of what we can do. And the committee looked at and wrestled with, well, what if we did just the elementary buildings and not the high school? That would reduce the cost, and they saw that. But they also saw the fact that we're leaving a major issue undone, and that bothered them. And they said, well, we could do the high school and leave the elementaries. And they saw that we really can't do that. So what goes away? And they said, we really can't afford to not do and address those critical pressure points that we're experiencing. So to get us where we need to go in 2040 and put us on that right track for the next generation of students, we need 105 classrooms. So we can either do it through adding on to buildings and moving kids out of those portables and inside the buildings, or we can continue to add portables and rows of portables. And that was, again, one of those uniting factors that brought them together. 96% of this bond issue is going directly to new classrooms, and then that essential infrastructure. And I know there's been some conversations about, well, deferred maintenance, this perception that the buildings aren't being well maintained. And I have to tell you, that struck a chord with a lot of our staff and families who are in and out of those buildings every day, because they know we take great care of our buildings. And in fact, if the amount of renovations that needed to be done to the buildings was greater than the cost of building new, OFCC would not fund us renovating those buildings. Every one of our buildings was in the condition to say we are going to continue to invest that. And I think you've heard Mr. Mapus say that when they came out and did that evaluation, they walked away with the ages of our buildings, the conditions. And if you go back to the evaluation the state did in 2005, that number of the score of how well our buildings are maintained has actually improved since 2005. For our oldest buildings. So that's something that we're very proud of. But as one person pointed out, when they heard the presentation and they looked at what we were spending our dollars on, they said, we really don't have that really, bright, shiny thing that we can point to. There isn't that thing that is, going to get everyone's attention. And I said, I have to tell you, if you're a third grade teacher, fourth grade, all of our fourth graders at Woodland are in portables. If you're a fourth grade teacher at Woodland and we can put your classroom in a hallway in our building where that student can leave your classroom, go down the hall, use the restroom, go to the office, go to music or PE, if we can do that, that's a pretty spectacular thing to that student, to their family, and to that staff member. That's a bright, shiny thing all the way across. So we've talked about the financing and going back to that mortgage. So selling bonds, and I'm going to simplify this, but the selling bonds is a lot like getting a mortgage. So we get a loan that we are going to use to buy a house, or to use that analogy. And so that $140 million is what we are asking the voters to approve. What happens then is they have to determine, just like your mortgage, you have a monthly payment. For the district, we have an annual payment. And they have to figure out, for us to pay back that loan, the mortgage, what is that mortgage payment going to be? So they use a number to calculate how much it'll cost to raise that dollar amount for that year to make that mortgage payment. So for this year, it's 5.95 mils. And that will generate enough money to cover that mortgage payment for that year. So on a $250,000 home, that's $43.39. So we'll kind of circle back to that. But also it's important that the OFCC, the Ohio Facilities Construction Commission, has approved us to be in their ALP program. And what that means is that the district has been approved that when this project is done, 30% of those approved, new facilities, renovation by OFCC, we will get reimbursed for those costs. That could mean up to 30% reimbursement. That would be 30% reimbursement, which could be up to $42 million. That at some point when the district is, our number comes up in that list, that we will receive those funds back. And the board at that time will make the determination as to how they would use those funds, either investing back into our buildings, or they could be using it to pay down the mortgage, pay it off early, or, applying it, for a rainy day, or using it to help offset operational costs. So I think when the committee heard about these things happening, I think they were very excited about that opportunity. So how do bond issues work? So this is that, going back to that mortgage scenario. So we agree to take out a loan for $140 million. We have a mortgage payment that we have to make, and it's based on the number of people that are in Perrysburg, businesses that are in Perrysburg today. And one of the things that happens in Perrysburg is each year we add people, we add businesses. So if you go back and look at how this actually plays out in Perrysburg, in 2014 we went to the voters and with a bond issue, roughly $41 million. And in November 4th, voters approved this. And on a home, on a home that was $250,000 value, it was calculated to be 2.94 mils to generate enough money to pay back the mortgage, to make the mortgage payment that year. And so what's happened since 2014? We've had more residents, more businesses, the value of the community increases, but that mortgage payment, just like your home mortgage, stays the same. So what happens in 2022, we have more people that are paying the mortgage, into the mortgage. So on a home that's valued at $250,000, we are now using a millage rate of 1.5 that's needed to make that payment. So instead of that $250,000 home paying $21.46 per month, it's now paying $10.94 per month. So that's how bond issues work. That bond issue, HPI, has decreased in 9 years, 51%. And that's significant. And as we look at kind of this bright side in terms of why now, we have been approved to receive up to $42 million back from the OFCC when a number gets called. And they've estimated somewhere in the next 5 years. So we're excited about what that means to the district. And that's 30% sale on this project that will come back. We're retiring. So we had a mortgage for the high school. And right now it's 1.62 mils. So on a $250,000 home, that's $11.81 a month. We're paying off our mortgage on December 31st, 2024. That 1.62 mils goes away. And so we have this situation where we're burning the mortgage on December 31st of 2024. 1.6 mils goes away. We also know that as we continue to grow, the more people that are coming in, the less mills everybody has to pay for that bond issue. We know that is going to decrease. It would be great if it stayed at 51%, but we know how that works in Perrysburg, and that decrease will continue. And it puts us in a great position with this as we talk to the community about it, that the costs and the dollar amounts, from the mills, paying off the mortgage, from the fact that as more people are coming in, the value increases, everybody pays less. When you begin to add in all of these kinds of things, it certainly helps make the case in the committee's mind that Perrysburg will remain a destination district. And as the committee members said to us, if we don't have the new classrooms in 2040, and we just make a decision that as a community we're not going to do anything, that is a decision to do something. And what that decision is that by 2040 we would need approximately 40 additional trailers for our students. We had a professor from Ohio Northern that did some calculation, came to one of the meetings and said, in 2040, if we're using 42 portable trailers like we're projecting to handle the growth instead of classrooms, 2,700 students will spend a portion of their school day in a portable classroom. And again, that's not why people came to Perrysburg. And if you're looking at communities to move your family into, and you pull up to the school and there are rows of portable, or you hear about the high school going in shifts, we know that people will begin to look at other communities, and that home value that is so important to so many people. Maybe there's not going to be 7 or 8 offers when you put your house up for sale. And maybe those offers will be people in White House or Monclova or Sylvania. So that's a concern that the committee had. And I think finally, as we look at this building, and we're right across from the gym, which probably, we know in a few weeks we'll be hearing basketballs and all kinds of stuff going on over there, which was added in the 1950s. But the 1950s, I think, had a lot of similarities to where we are today. And we knew that in the 1950s, people were coming back from World War II. And we knew that they were getting married and having children, so there was growth in Perrysburg. There's a lot of uncertainty in the world in the 1950s, and we can certainly feel that today. We also understood in the 1950s there were some aging buildings. So you had this mix of a little bit of uncertainty, growth, aging buildings, and the need for new space. So imagine if at this time, and I'm grateful, probably not as much as they were, that Facebook wasn't a thing in the 1950s, because I think this would not have gone unnoticed in the 1950s. And that is this. So we opened up a new building in 1952. And then at some point in the 1950s, the old 1894 building, which was 3 stories, the second story or the third story of that building was condemned. Like, kids aren't allowed up there. You need to do something. And they had to physically remove the 3rd floor of a building that was being used for school. And then they had to come back a few years later and say, we need to add another elementary school. 2 elementaries, removing the 3rd floor of an existing building probably wasn't something that was very popular in the 1950s. But as the committee said, they were very grateful that the people in the 1950s of Perrysburg made the tough decisions that they did, because it has led to where we are as a district today. And I think there is a lot to be appreciated about those sacrifices and what it means to us today. So I think it's very similar to where we are. As the committee talked about this is a bond issue that's about needs and not wants. And so we're certainly grateful for that. So appreciate the time, and happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Hostler? This is information that he has shared with this board a couple of times, but it's always good to hear it again, as these are recorded, to get it out there in the community members who may be getting more engaged as we get closer to November and decision day. So
You have one of your listening tours tomorrow
Yes, tomorrow evening.
at Gathering Volume?
Yes,
Okay.
looking forward to that.
7 o'clock. How am I doing?
So far, so good.
3 out of 3? All right, I'll take
I
it.
need to look at my calendar to confirm that.
30?
Is it 5?
Very good.
5 to
5?
6:30, I
5
think.
to 6:30.
5 to 6? Oh, 2 out of 3 ain't bad.
Yep. No, and that's a great opportunity. Appreciate Randy and I being out there and available. So, answering good questions. So,
Okay.
Yep, 5 to 6:30.
Yep.
So,
My other meeting's at 7, sorry.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Hostler.
yeah.
Mr. Druyer, on for the treasurer's report.
All right. Well, it's fall. We're 25% in the school year, so we're rolling along, right? And the legislature is getting active, so a lot of things going on. So let me just start with a quick general fund update. There we go. All right, clicker's working. A little bit different this month, I decided to, all those numbers, I'll try to draw your eye the ones I'm looking at. First one there, circle, is the true cash days. We're at 143 true cash days. So assuming we had no income, we could operate for 143 days. But it's a good measure because sometimes the cash balance is not meaningful. I mean, $30 million is a lot of money, but you got to keep that in perspective. In our individual bank accounts, I think we would do better than 143 true cash days with that. But looking through some of the key numbers, you see in the green circle, that's our year over year, all other revenue is up 132.5%, and that's primarily driven by the strong interest rates right now. Strong cash balance. We're earning up to 5% on some of our monies, which is, I never thought I'd see in my lifetime. Now, it's good until we sell bonds and we'll want the interest rates to go the other way, but that's another story. We're 4.5% year over year increase in revenue. Again, about where we'd expect. The impact of the Fair School Funding Plan hasn't shown up yet. It will in October when they actually start incorporating that into our foundation payments. On the expense side, the one number that's kind of year over year, hopefully catches your eyes, 15% on purchase services. That is being driven by special education. And that's driven by student needs. It's driven by what we need to do, particularly on the para side, we had to change the salary schedules to try to attract paraprofessionals. And that's the one area that's going to continue to be a challenge, but that's completely driven by student needs and our ability to attract people. But overall, our expenses year over year up 2.7%. So happy with that. Hopefully we can sustain that at that level. So again, you've seen this every month. There's our cash flow. We're just on our normal trend. I'll point out at the work session, we start talking about the 5-year forecast. We tend to look at the end of year cash balances, but really the most important ones are here in January and February. That's when we're at our lowest point. And if you look back to, even 2020 and 19 before that, making payroll is tough. Overall cash balance for the district is fine, but in any given month at our low point, and some legislation could impact those dates. Now, obviously, we're in a better cash position now that if we have a delay in our payments, it's not going to be quite as devastating. But this is a conversation I'm just teeing up when we get to November 1st. When we go through the 5-year forecast, we'll be talking about this a lot. So already hit the high points here. Earnings on interest continue to be strong. Our revenue is ahead by 4.5%, and special education costs are driving much of our year-over-year increased purchase services. So I want to that's kind of where we are. We're in good shape. We're tracking well. But I want to talk about some couple key legislations that are out there that will impact us or potentially impact us. The first one is House Bill 187, or in the Senate side, it's Senate Bill 153. This bill has passed the House. It's in the Senate. The Senate Ways and Means Committee did not have a hearing on it this week like they were intended to. So we don't know exactly where it is right now, but it's something's going to happen. So just to kind of remind you, I don't think as taxpayers you need much reminding, but we had the big increase in the reappraisal, and we're at the 20 mil floor, which causes, obviously a significant jump, as we've shown earlier in other board meetings. So what the legislators have proposed is trying to soften that by using a 3-year average on the sales data. Sales data is the biggest driver on that reappraisal. So looking back 3 years, so it's not 1 year's data that's driving it. So that's kind of the summary of how this works. Well, what does it look like? The blue bar is, if you will, the valuation that's in my forecast and what we predicted if there's no changes as a result of House Bill 187. But the orange bar is what will happen to the valuations if that's in place. It'll soften the impact on the taxpayers, which is a good thing. But you notice what happens in 2026, there's a snapback, and we're right back to where we were. So it's only for this 1 3-year period look back. Another way to look at this is, so obviously the impact on 187 is on valuations, which impacts our collections, but it also has an impact on our state funding. And this is important to note. So in the current forecast right now, if you look at the third line there, that's our state share as a forecast per student. So a little over $2,000 this year, drops to $1,700 next year, mainly due to because they don't update the base cost, back up to $2,000, down again, up again 2028. So if left alone, that's what we would expect our state share to be over the next 5 years. With House Bill 187, you'll notice that starting next year, we see a slight increase in our state funding. Because what happens is by smoothing out the valuation, it lowers the valuation, which makes us a little bit less capacity and additional state funding. So there is a benefit to the taxpayer, and then there's a benefit getting more state support. But the question is, what's the net impact? So at the top of this, a lot of numbers in the yellow box. So that valuation change, that's the impact on the local tax rates, or tax collections, if you will, because it'll impact our real estate, our state share, as well as the levy renewal. On the negative side, obviously those red numbers, not good, right? On the positive side, it increases our state aid. The net effect, though, is down here. The cumulative effect would be over the 5 years of the forecast, a little less than $900,000 negative. Now that, because of the estimates, that could be essentially break even. It could shift anyway when you get that close a number. So I'm not overly excited about whether it's $900,000 negative or it's zero. It's probably close to break even. So because I'm just doing my estimates because we don't know what the exact numbers are. Okay, so that's the impact of House Bill 187. It's passed the House. It's in the Senate. At this point, we don't know if any amendments have been added to it. There are, however, been some suggestions for an amendment. And I want to bring it up just for education purposes. It's not in any legislation yet, but it's something for our education on how school funding works. You can read through all that summary, but I want to point out what essentially the recommendation on changing the 20 mil floor, allowing the 20 mil floor to float. So potentially, no longer have a 20 mil floor. Every school district would have its own floor. And that floor is determined by 7.1% year-over-year growth. For in our case, if left alone, we were going to see about an 8.5%. Okay, sounds good. Great relief for a local taxpayer. We can all get behind that. But here's what it ends up doing. This is our Class 1 tax rate. That's agriculture and residential. We're at the 20 mil floor. That would essentially lower us to about 7.89 mils. Well, you've seen this chart before. This is our levies. You see where we were this year. Those two, the inside millage and the current expense voted millage, those two add up to 20 mils. That's our 20 mil floor calculation. If left alone, we are going to see obviously a significant increase in those two line items because of that being a 20 mil floor, effective rate can't drop any farther and increase valuations. With this proposal, I got it there highlighted in bright yellow, the current expense voted would drop to 13.59 mils. We still see a slight increase in revenue, but obviously $290 per year on a $325,000 home. So that's the impact of it, okay? So what does that really mean? You've seen this chart before. On top, that's the impact on local tax collections. But the big difference is this next piece of it. If we eliminate the 20 mil floor, it helps the local taxpayers, again, a good thing, but it doesn't change valuations. Therefore, for the state's concerned, we're still as wealthy as ever, so there's no mechanism to increase our state funding. So you reduce the capacity to collect locally, but there's no increase in capacity at the state level. And if you look down here, over 5 years, that's over $11 million in lost revenue. Wow. So that's just the impact. So, you know, those of us, when House Bill 187 came up, we you know, in the treasurer's world, we're all talking. It's, you know, we're really not opposed to what they're trying to do, just want to be thoughtful, looking at the future. But if changing the 20 mil floor would be, I would be wanting to go oppose that, because while it reduces the local impact, there's no offsetting state impact, so it's still going to stay on the local impact. We're going to have to ask for that money back, essentially. And this is you'll see this here in a couple weeks. This chart, the top line is the current forecast, the little squares. The middle one is the impact of House Bill 187, and the lower one is eliminating the 20 mil floor. So it puts us as a district in dire straits 2 years earlier than we would be otherwise. And that's all my cheerful news on that. So, but House Bill 187 right now, you can see the impact over the long term. I think it's fine. Changing the 20 mil floor, we have to think about it a lot more than it's gone into it. Right now, I don't know if it's caught traction or not, but it is sitting out there. And the other thing, House Bill 187, potentially, if it gets passed, it could delay our tax collections, because the auditor would have to recalculate everything. So that has an impact on us. A couple other items. Our 23 fiscal audit is kicked off. That's actively going on. You guys, the board should have received emails today from our auditor. So I would encourage you to please return those. In the past, the auditors can kind of consider those as optional. They don't consider it optional now. They expect all 5 board members to return those, their surveys. That's a point of emphasis in the auditor's office. The second thing that just happened before end of the day today, Kelly doesn't know this yet, but the auditor of state is in the process of their state STRS and SERS audit, and we've been chosen as one of the school districts they're going to audit as part of the state retirement system. Not a huge deal, just one more thing we have to do before the end of October is provide them some data. What they do is just making sure that they'll pull a number of employees and just make sure that the board share paid to the retirement system is what it should be. And it's part of the state liabilities on the retirement funds. It's not a big deal, but it was one of those calls, you know, hey, I'm your friendly auditor. We're doing STRS and SERS. You've been chosen.
Oh, that's great. Congrats, Kelly.
Yeah. I said, do we get an award for that? Yeah. No, just more work. That's okay. And of course, then again, on November 1st, the work session, we're going through the 5-year forecast in detail. The Finance Committee got it last Friday, but I expect it to be tweaked and worked on prior to the 1st, and I'll go through it in nauseam. So Denise, school finance is fun, so just like food service. So that's all I have for tonight.
You also have an item 7.3 fund transfers.
Yeah, so good question. So what we do, typically all the, each of the school classes, the graduating classes have their own funds they use for different things, prom, graduation and stuff. And once a class graduates, that money sits there, and normally we leave it up to the advisor, or if the class officers tell us before they leave what they want done with those leftover funds. And so the advisor came back to us and said, hey, there's funds in that account left over, please transfer them to the current senior class and the current junior class. So that's last year's graduating classes, leftover money coming back to those other student activities. Yeah. Any other questions?
I have a quick question. On the investments that we do, there's 2 that we do. Would it be better to move the one that has the highest interest rate to combine those into one? I know one has a 4% and one has like the 5% that you
So
mentioned.
Star Ohio right now is our most liquid fund and is generating the highest. It's not traditionally been the highest, and so we're just trying to stagger the risk in terms of interest risk, right? We expect when interest rates start falling, Star Ohio will fall, whereas the commercial paper and the other investments that we have will still stay up there. So in the short run, that might be that's a good idea. We think about that and talk about it, but then we think in the long run, a year past that these funds they were better off staying in there. Plus, the vast majority of money is in Star Ohio. But
Yeah, that just has a lower interest rate. I was just wondering.
it's a little bit lower, but again, we're Star Ohio is it won't do this, but it could crash, right? It could go from 5% to 1% overnight, whereas these other investments aren't going to do that. So we're just kind of leveraging, just like you do with your own investments. You have some short-term stuff, long-term stuff, and you try to ladder it. So that's kind of our thinking on it. But you are right; it's very, very tempting right now to put all our money in Star Ohio. But most now we don't use a paid advisor on this, but most advisors want you to diversify.
Yeah. Okay.
Good question. Thank you for asking.
Sure.
Anything else? Perfectamundo.
We'll let you come back and we will look to approve your items. Okay, item 7.4, I am looking for a motion to approve agenda items 7.2 and 7.3, which includes the September 2023 financial report and the fund transfer as outlined by Mr. Druyer.
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Eubank? And Ms. Larimer? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Eubank.
Yes.
Ms. Larimer.
Yes.
Dr. Ruffert.
Yes.
Mr. Bennington.
Yes. Okay, we're at that point. We're going to, after the 7 o'clock hour, we've been at it a while. I am going to ask for a 10-minute recess.
Okay.
We will regroup at 7:20, so call it 8 minutes. Okay, thank you. We are back in session. Next item is Agenda 8, Board Committee and Discussion. And Ms. Larimer, we will start with the Operations Committee.
Okay, so in looking at the notes that were submitted, and Denise kind of took my thunder for everything related to that. The transportation, if you saw in the news, oh, I'm not on. I'll speak loudly, but anyway. It is School Bus Week, if I saw in the news correctly, so you might see some fun things going on about school buses. The big thing that was for them was that the rules that they have to do for the school bus evacuation testings, that was all completed, so everybody, that's all done. Brent spoke quite a while about all the technology. One of the fixing the sound system at the stadium, it had a hiccup, so they've been working on fixing that. And again, what his group does to save us thousands of dollars every time he gets in there and has to fix something is really quite incredible. Jason is working on the operations and maintenance, and that was really well covered in the notes. So really, honestly, I didn't see, the notes were really thorough this time. I don't think that there's a whole lot that I need to add for you.
Okay, yeah. Once again, it's always impressive how well that group works together as a team to find solutions for the district.
Do you want me to talk about the foundation right now?
Sure.
All right. So the Perrysburg School Foundation, you already had a little bit of introduction to them tonight, but so for the first 2 months of this school year, the money that they have raised has gone up 40%. The number of donors adding to that 40% went up a little, right around 8% over last year. This is huge. This is really feeding the foundation, and we couldn't be more thankful to the PSF board members, to Jeff Abke, and especially to the community, which is all over the nation, probably the world, that are supporting the Perrysburg School Foundation. So what do they do? A lot of people still don't understand what they do. A lot of things that we do happened at our last meeting. There were 4 major things. The first one was we supplied a grant to buy language boards for Woodland. And those are boards that can help students learn basic words in other languages, but it is especially helpful for our ESL students as they're trying to learn our language and function in our English world. So that was something that Woodland needed. For the high school, they wanted training for their high school student ambassadors as more and more students come into the high school at various times throughout the year. These ambassadors will help the new students acclimate, and a lot of times they are ESL students, so it's something for them. A third thing was that we purchased some equipment for the Fort Meigs playground. So far we're going all over the district. A fourth thing was for the junior high art department, where they needed a grant to buy 3D problem-solving equipment and architecture teaching tools. So that's where some of this money goes to, for things that really enhance the student experience. So that's PSF for you.
Okay, great work that they do. Thank you. Curriculum, or Finance Committee, I think we've heard, pretty much got the update, and then a couple new pieces of information since that meeting. So, Ms. Eubank, anything else that?
No, I think we covered it. Thank you.
Curriculum Committee, we focused on a deep dive into the state report card that the board got an update on. It was essentially the work session conversation. Ray and I got a double dose, which is not a bad thing, of really good news during that week.
You need a double dose to absorb it.
There was no policy committee, and communications committee attached written update in lieu of meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Anything to highlight or point out from that?
No, Villette was sick, so we had to cancel the meeting.
Very
Rachel
good.
had to cancel.
Okay, that takes us to any other committees or anything else to be addressed that I may have missed. Okay, that takes us to item 9, the consent agenda. The consent agenda will cover items 10 through 14. Do I have a motion to accept the consent agenda?
So moved.
Dr.
Second.
Ruffert,
Second?
Ms. Larimer, and roll call, please.
Dr. Ruffert,
Yes.
Ms. Larimer,
Yes.
Mrs. Eubank,
Yes.
Mr. Bennington.
Yes, the consent agenda passes. Item 15, board discussion. Any new business that any board members would like to bring up? I do have one item that I would like to discuss on it, if there's nothing else to bring up. So I would like to discuss, it's come to the attention of this board certainly that the board the district has some projects going on that sent money, we did not use local labor. And that is something from this board member's standpoint, I think needs to be addressed. I think we need to find we need to put guardrails around our process, improve our procurement processes so that we are biased, we are focused towards local labor, doing local projects with local tax dollars. And as I think about that and as I talk about that with others, there are certain ways to do that, ways that other organizations like the Perrysburg School District has done, including Washington Local, Toledo Schools, Bowling Green State University, and even the city of Perrysburg. And essentially what they are, is a project labor agreement. Project labor agreements are designed to be a pre-collective bargaining arrangement that puts certain criteria onto contractors looking to bid that stipulate certain things like the use of a local workforce, certain safety guidelines, dispute resolution. Sorry, I'm drawing a blank here. Oh, you know, kind of translates into better outcomes as far as on-time delivery of projects, on-budget delivery of projects. So this is something that I think this board should consider taking a look at and asking the administration to look into and even implement. I feel that way about it. A little bit without Ray in the room, since he's out today, about how to move forward. I've got some suggestions, but that is my discussion point. I'm open for any other thoughts on the topic.
So I'm not clear what you're asking. You're not making a motion or a resolution, you just want you want Tom and his team to look into it more, or are you asking for a decision tonight?
Probably asking what is the board willing to do tonight on it? You know, what would the board like to?
I would like more time to read the avalanche of information that came into us today. I don't feel prepared to make a decision.
I concur. I hadn't had a chance to read the email in depth, just glance, the one that we got sometime this afternoon. I haven't had a chance to read it, and the information here, I just, again, glanced, but haven't had a chance to read it.
Okay.
I like what you're suggesting and leaning towards, but I just, would like to have the information and understand it a little more in depth.
Okay.
I'm along the lines with you, Mr. Bennington, and the other two board members. I understand what PLAs are. I too would like to keep things local, but I think we need a little bit more information before where everybody has it, that everybody's kind of on the same level playing field with the PLA, and have the time to look into it. So I would like to make sure that we can get some more prepared information that we can look at to make a better decision for everybody. Does that make sense?
It does. Okay. I would like to keep things moving forward. There's draft resolutions out there to be considered. There's probably other questions that we may have. In the spirit of keeping things moving, I would like to make a motion. I'll read it here, and then I'll be looking for a first and a second. I propose the board pass a motion authorizing and directing the superintendent and treasurer to discuss with the Northwestern Ohio Building and Construction Trades Council and its affiliates the terms of a proposed project labor agreement that will then be presented to the board at its next board meeting on Wednesday, November 1st, 2023.
As a point of order, you can make the motion yourself if you'd
And
like.
I have just made the motion.
Okay.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Any more discussion?
I'm a little bit confused. So this is giving, I don't know why this is so hard.
It's giving us homework.
It's giving you homework?
Giving them
Okay,
homework,
I've
yes.
got plenty on my plate, so I don't need any more homework. But it's giving you homework to create a PLA that we're going to vote yay or nay in November? Is that like the Reader's Digest version?
Yeah, but it's essentially take a look and present to us a PLA that we know has been vetted through the trades.
So this is like the first step in looking at then the second sheet we got tonight. Like,
It could be, yes, it would help clarify then the resolution
okay,
that, done well,
right,
would then be voted on in the work session
okay.
in November.
Okay, because this is the part I didn't get a chance to read, so, okay. So this is
if-
just getting the wheels going to look into, okay.
Continuing the wheels,
Okay,
yes. Yep.
I understand that now, thank you.
But if this is for them to create a PLA and I've got to decide if I'm going to vote on a PLA the next time, that doesn't, I haven't been, I didn't have time to read what was sent to us today
I agree.
to even understand what that effect is. We already have a process by the Ohio Revised Code for competitive bidding. Why do I want to change that? And you're jumping into a PLA will be ready by next meeting.
Well, I am saying that a report on the PLA will be provided at the next meeting.
So if it could help, what I could do is, Randy and I could pull that information that was shared, kind of what it is, how it operates, how it functions, those entities that you talked about, be able to pull all that information together at the work session and then share that information. And then between now and then, you have opportunities to ask questions, to learn. We then share that information, and then we do have in our back pocket the resolution that if so inclined after all of that information, then you can make a decision that Wednesday. I think that's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, my
from-
goal, the goal would be to have a resolution
Right.
at that meeting to discuss
Yep.
and potentially take action on.
So to discuss and to, did you say to vote on?
Potentially take action
Potentially,
on,
okay.
yes. So I'm going to call the question on the motion.
Okay,
Mr. Drewer?
Mr. Bennington,
Yes.
Dr. Ruffert,
Yes.
Ms. Larimer,
I just don't like the way this is worded. I'm going to say no.
Mrs. Eubank,
No.
Okay, the motion does not carry.
I want the opportunity to digest the volumes of stuff that we got today, understand, because who doesn't want local labor? We want local labor. But let's give us a chance. We'll be ready by work session, and then at work session, then we can go from there. I can see that, but I don't feel like I'm playing with a full deck of information at this point.
I agree. That's my hesitation. I just haven't had a chance to even read the email we got today, and I haven't even had a chance to read this, so.
Just so the public knows, this email wasn't just an email. It was over 25 pages worth of information.
Yeah.
It wasn't just an email.
Right.
And there was no way it could have gotten to us sooner. So it was just, it's now ready, here it is, and I just couldn't do it. So I respectfully request time to make an informed decision as to what this is.
Well, we will take it up again in the work session in November.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I think, too, and I appreciate the resolution, and it was just aiming to begin to discuss with the organization that does it. So as I read the motion, it was not anything that was compelling any board member to do except for us to formally begin to have a conversation.
I would like to say you should still have that conversation in order for us to
Yeah.
be
I mean,
fully
when-
informed,
Yeah.
so.
Wouldn't
Yeah.
it be logical to have that conversation by the next board meeting, if that's possible? That's a pretty short period of time.
Yeah, and that's
More
what
than
the.
14
Give
that's what
us
the-
more information.
Yeah, I think that's what the resolution was saying, just in a formal way. To say that this is something that we do want to learn more about and go out, discuss, put something together in the event that we land there as a board or you land there as a board. And so that was it. It's just a more formal directive to do those things that everybody is asking.
Right.
So-
My
Agreed.
request then as a board member would to informally then,
Yeah,
or my
so-
informal request is to have those
the
conversations.
takeaway is Tom and I still have the same homework, so,
Correct.
Agreed.
and
And
we'll
if it
have,
costs us another bun cake, we will make that arrangement for you. That's what you need.
Kelly, buy him some more bundt cakes.
So I would like, can I please make a comment? I don't know if this is the appropriate time or not. So our work session is more than 14 days away. So I ask respectfully, Ms. Eubank and Ms. Larimer, if you do have questions, please make sure that they get them probably by the middle of next week so they have time to
Oh, yeah,
research
of
what
course.
what you're asking. While it was a lot of information, you know, we aren't asking for, or I'm sorry, the motion that Mr. Bennington just provided, reiterating what Mr. Hostler said, it was just formally requesting homework. So we weren't asking, or the motion was not requesting to have something there for us to vote on. But I want to make sure that we reiterate the importance of having that ready to roll for the next work session, because I know that 14 days will come quick, and that we're ready for whatever information is prepared prior to that. So Mr. Dreer and Mr. Hostler, if you could even get it to us a little bit before the first, so we have time to read it, I would appreciate that as well. If at
Next
all
time you can make the motion. Well said.
Well, just so that we haven't, you know, everybody has enough time to go through it because it is lengthy. You know, especially if you don't have a lot of information or you know what I mean, have a lot of union labor experience.
And again, I'm going to ask the board, you've got the email went out today. Please send us your questions as soon as possible. We're going to continue to do work on that, but we can best address things if we know what your questions are. We're guessing, not guessing.
Right.
We're making educated guesses, but we need to know what your questions are because not everyone has the same basis or benchmark.
Yes. Thank you for that clarification, Randy.
Any other discussion for the good of the group? Okay. Next, that takes us to public comment. The board welcomes public participation. Please preface your comments with your name, address, and group affiliation. We will be limiting individual public comments to 3 minutes apiece. The board will not respond, but I myself or Mr. Hosser may reach out subsequent to this meeting. So our first public participant is Mr. Dustin Hoff.
Thank you. My name is Dustin Huff. I'm a local aid organizer. I oversee this jurisdiction for local aid activities as far as organizing and the work that comes on in these areas. Now, I will say Mr. Bennington stole a lot of my thunder with what I have to say, but I'd like to address the school board about this lighting retrofit being performed at the various Perrysburg schools. There's been a lot of discussion, and when you're in labor, and you're in a position that I am, when a van shows up somewhere in the middle of the night, my phone rings. Who is this? What are they doing here? What do they want? What's going on? And this happens to be one of those occasions. What's going on? Some of the questions that are asked, these guys don't look to be local. They're not us. They're not local aid. They're not even the non-union. Who are these guys? And for that matter, why are they not even local? What is it? Well, you know, they're asking me, what's the concern here? Is it a budget? Or is it just a lack of vetting, you know, to accommodate responsible language to fit a budget? You know, do we not adhere to that? I said, I don't know. I'm not part of the school board. But my concern really is this. You have a entity that is out of town. We know that. The concern is, are these qualified individuals? This work is being performed at night. Who oversees it? Do we have a school board member on staff that is there with those people? Or are they running amok in your school board or your schools out of town? If there's an emergency, are these people trained properly to handle an emergency? Or are they just temp agency workers hired to change out some lights? Now, I don't have these answers, and I want to make this short and brief. Perrysburg schools, I look up to. I myself go to the pit. I enjoy that, okay? I have no idea what match is coming up next because I cannot understand the board. So if anybody sees me there and want to explain what match is next, please do so. I like to go to the All-Star game that's held over here on the high school field for the football. Some of the best talent around. Perrysburg does not play when it comes to their athletics, and I respect that. But I look at what message is the school board sending to the youth attending the Pena County program who are trying to build a career in this field, only to watch them hire out-of-town workers to do the work that they are training for. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next public participant is Mr. Bill DeWitt.
Thank you, Board. My name is Bill DeWitt. I'm a Local 8 business agent for this area. First of all, congratulations on your 5-star. That is something very impressive, and at the size of this school district, extremely impressive, so congratulations. A question was asked about, or a statement was made that you had just received this email tonight, or today. That email was in fact sent 3 weeks ago, so you should have had plenty of time to look over that. That was sent actually 3 weeks ago, a little over 3 weeks ago now. My question is, and I understand that there would be no comment, but my question is, this is my second meeting. I hear nothing but the commitment that you guys to the community. So my question to you is, what greater commitment to this community on, I mean, you guys are asking for $140 million, well-deserved, well-earned. We've just moved out of Toledo 6 years ago, and we were between Monclova, Anthony Wayne, and Perrysburg. It wasn't a huge swing in it, but we seen the buildings outside the schools. That was definitely one of the things that kind of led us the other way. The 5-star rating, had you guys been 5 stars then, that probably would have tipped the scale back. Question of the commitment to the community, what greater commitment could there be than, I understand there's responsible language, but we have a $3.7 million job that was just given out that was somebody, from what we've been investigating, has just been, somebody sold you a deal of goods. They just sold you a deal of goods. Three, on the electrical side, I know 3 contractors were given the opportunity to bid. One in Findlay, the one that won it in Columbus, and I don't know where the third one was. To me, that's not local. So a question to you guys, I guess you guys answer when you guys are together, is what greater commitment to the community could there be? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, that is the end of the public participation session. Next item is a motion to adjourn.
So moved?
Second.
Ms. Larimer and Ms. Eubank, roll call, please.
Ms. Larimer,
Yes.
Mrs. Eubank,
Yes.
Dr. Reffert,
Yes.
Mr. Bennington.
Yes, we are adjourned.